Hey, this is Tim
And Brooke.
from Slingshot Group, and we put people in their place.
And we do that through staffing and coaching with churches and nonprofits.
And today we're going to talk about tips on what to look for when you're hiring your new leader.
It's a lot of things to consider.
There are a lot of things to consider, and what I love about this is the intersection between staffing and coaching. That's probably the most rewarding part of the work that we do.
Absolutely, hands down.
We want to talk to you about the different competencies and skills you're looking for in any particular hire.
Sure, so you may think of like the 5 C's, culture, competency, chemistry, blah, blah, blah.
Things like hungry, humble, smart. There's been so many over the years.
Lots of things to think about.
And what we do is focus you in on the unique things you need for that particular role.
And to be able to help you prioritize, even as you're connecting with and interviewing candidates for the role, what are the things that are most important to consider?
One of the things you have to realize is you can't have everything.
That's
but
true.
we'll always say pay attention to chemistry. Talk about chemistry, Brooke.
Chemistry is incredibly important because as you engage with someone, first of all, you're going to know very quickly if you feel like, hey, I really want to hang out with that person, and whether or not they're going to be able to thrive on your team.
We'll say this to hiring leaders and search teams and the candidate. Pay attention to chemistry because these are the people that you're going to be spending life with day in and day out.
A lot of time with.
The next thing we will always talk about is a sense of calling.
And calling is critical because on the days that are really hard and you just want to throw in the towel, those are the days that calling kicks in and that person will stay because they feel called to what they're doing.
To remember the story of how you were called to a certain organization, and I'll often say the size of the calling often equals the size of the task. Because you're right, it's calling that's going to keep you engaged long term. What about talent, Brooke, and how talent plays into the whole process?
Absolutely. So talent is one that oftentimes is the first gauge of an individual, and that's kind of the default or go-to. But goodness, there's so many more things that coupled with talent can make it an epic game changer.
Yeah. Talent can often blind a search team or a hiring leader to the other competencies. We'll often say it can often spoil the process if we don't pay attention to it. Because think about it. I mean, you can hire a talented person without the other defining qualities. And sure, you put them in the harbor and all the ships are going to rise. The water level is going to rise. But what happens when you get some of those other competencies?
So when that person not only brings talent, but also brings chemistry and intense competency and just as a great culture fit, it's like a culture tsunami. So Tim, tell us a little bit about if you are this hiring body, search team, what are some great questions to ask?
One of the questions is, what will you need from leadership? What kind of support will you need from leadership? That gives you a really good sense of how collaborative they are, whether they think they're going to be coming in with all the answers, because that's not helpful.
And maybe even what is unsettling or a point of fear or contention for them as they consider this new role.
Right. Likewise, what do they think is going to be energizing about the role? What's going to get them up in the morning? That kind of thing. What about strategy?
Strategy is a great one because you can kind of get a sense for what they can envision in the future by looking at even just the first month in, 60 days, 90 days, even a year on down the road to understand kind of their thought process on how they might engage in that role.
Right. We often encourage a team to say, hey, what's your strategy for the first 2 years, 5 years? Another important one is who have you mentored and who has mentored you?
That's a great question because it also just gives you a sense as to where they value awareness of their self and just constant learning. So when we think of a great team and you think about building a remarkable team, you look at the team that Jesus assembled, the 12. I mean, what a ragtag group of people, but he saw value in talent and skill and competency and character and all those things, and look how that turned out. That's why at Slingshot, we love to put people in their place.
And it's up to you to help them love their work.